With us, here's the question. With people struggling to make it in today's economy, with all the talk about reducing the deficit and cutting spending, can the country afford to spend that much on an inauguration for a re-elected president?
Well, you have to do it. I mean, it really is tradition. And yes, you mentioned the budget that, of course, comes out of the federal government, but there's also the Presidential Inaugural Committee, rather, and that relies on private donations. So you look at the donations that came in for the president during the campaign. Look at the celebrities, of course, that have come to his side and have campaigned for him. I think a lot of celebrities certainly gave money last time. I was at the inauguration 4 years ago. There were celebrities everywhere, of course, celebrities performing at the different balls, at welcome events. And if you look at the kind of crowds that the inauguration 4 years ago generated, it was a record number of people, 1.8 million people at the inauguration, probably the biggest event in Washington, D.C., let alone the biggest inaugural event. So you look at the kind of money that generates with people coming into town. The hotels, I think, generated about $100 million alone, just the hotels, not even counting restaurants and stores. So, I mean, this generates an enormous amount of money for Washington, D.C., and for taxes for the federal government.
Well, what is the difference, do you think, in terms of how much would be spent for a president, you know, who is reelected as opposed to a first-time president, as President Obama was last time around? Is there a difference, or do they spend about the same amount?
I think people will spend the same amount. I think people will definitely come to D.C. And also, this year, it falls on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the inauguration. Normally, it's supposed to be held on January 20th, according to the Constitution. But because January 20th is on a Sunday, they've moved it to Monday, which is, it's a holiday weekend, and it actually is on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is only the second time in history this has happened. So you have a holiday weekend, which is obviously going to allow more people to take that time off to come to the D.C. area. So I think you'll probably see the same kind of crowd. And it was freezing 4 years ago, freezing, but yet that did not deter people. There were, again, 1.8 million people there attending this. So again, you have to remember what kind of money that generates, what that brings in, not only the official balls, but all of the events. I mean, I got there a couple days beforehand, and there were events, so many events leading up to the inauguration, events that you needed tickets for, that you had to buy tickets for, even just events that if you were just out on the street, and all the vendors selling merchandise, and just people in town to celebrate the event. And I think you're going to have that same kind of crowd. Certainly, we saw enthusiasm in this past election. I think you're going to see a lot of people turn out.
Okay. And just one really quick question. We only have about a minute left, but any viable alternatives to a big, lavish inauguration?
You know, again, I think this is tradition. You expect this, whether it's a president that is going into his second term or whether it's a president on their first term. I think people want to see this. You need to kind of usher in a new era. I think this is something that people want to see, and it's just even mentally, you need to see that inauguration to kind of feel like, okay, here we go, the next 4 years, now here's a new start. And I think even with you think about how contentious this past campaign was, maybe that will even help bring people together.
All righty, Kim Seraphin, good to have you, Kim. Thank you so much.